Welcome to our video providing a general understanding of the Ottoman cultural context for the perfectly period feast Ottoman. The guest today is Doña Mora Otayas Valera, who is our cultural expert on the Ottoman Empire in this time. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't personally identify as a cultural expert. I'm actually fairly new to learning about the Ottoman Empire myself, which is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to offer this information is because I'm just learning about it and expanding my knowledge, coming from kind of the more standard SCA, late period Eurocentric sort of general knowledge milieu. And so for anybody who's kind of coming from that place and curious about, okay, well, what does it mean? What's that? What is exactly does the Ottoman Empire mean? Who is that? When is that? Why is that? How is that? I just kind of wanted to offer that. So if you're hanging out in late period Europe, the East has the Islamic world. If you go far enough to the East, that's what you're going to end up hitting unless you're really north. Just like in Europe, where Christianity was the dominant religious culture and influenced things and created a commonality even amongst all of these different, countries and nation states that were, fighting and allied and, jockeying with each other at various places and times. Pretty much the same thing was happening to the East in the Islamic world. There were a number of different cultures over there that had been doing kind of similar jockeying in terms of both like how they were interpreting their religion and their general like culture and territories and lands and backgrounds, similar intermixing. Our event is in the 1550s, which is at the height of the Ottoman Empire, the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent. He was called magnificent because he dressed in these fantastic clothes and everything around him was incredibly sumptuous. He was very, very notable. And he also was a very warlike ruler and was constantly working throughout his reign to expand the scope of the empire. So you had kind of the Turkic people that were kind of in the northwestern portion of the Islamic world. Kind of south of that, you had the Mamluks who were reigning in Egypt and Syria. Further east, you have the Persians or Safavids. So there's all of these different cultures. And the Turkic Ottomans were expanded. So about 40 years before our event, they came south and they took over the whole Mamluk area. They took Cairo, they took Damascus, they took Mecca, they took Medina. All of these hugely important cultural areas became part of the Ottoman Empire about 40 years before our event. In addition, they were heading west. They were on the eastern and southern portions of the Mediterranean coast. They were all over that area. They were crossing the Mediterranean and trying to come up into Europe. Nice was attacked at one point. The Isle of Rhodes, they were really trying to come in and take over. They were at the borders of Austria. The Habsburgs were constantly dealing with the Ottoman threat during this era. There was a lot of tension in that. And Suleiman was actually leveraging the tension between the Habsburgs and France and some of the other things that were happening in Europe at the time. So there was a lot of political jockeying back and forth between the two as well. So good opportunities for, our guests of honor at this feast are some European visitors who are trying to deal with a little bit of political shenaniganery with our prince who is hosting the feast that we're having. So, and then to the east, the Persians were at war with so this is another Islamic culture, and they were in conflict for large portions of this era. 1555, right in the middle of the period that we're kind of creating, is when they finally managed a peace, and then there was 20 years of quiet on the Persian border. So very, very big empire. Just like the Roman Empire, very mixed in terms of culture, right? They're bringing people in from all of these different cultural locations on the borders. They're trying to draw in both wealth and intellectual prowess, ideas. It was a very active sort of sociocultural polity. They actually thought of themselves as Rumi, drawing from the Eastern Roman Empire tradition, Rumi as in Roman. So that was one of the names that they used for themselves. They would talk about Arabs and the Arabian Peninsula, but the word Arab was usually typically used to mean the actual Bedouin, nomadic tribes. For the people who were settled in that area and, Cairo, et cetera, they would actually talk about them as sons of Arabs. but it really depended on like who was talking and who, like which cultural name you're using in comparison to whom, about how these different terms were used. So what's really interesting is that um, the events like this feast and the garden party salon that we're going to be having after the eating portion of the event is done, those were really, really important throughout the empire in kind of creating this like new cultural blend of bringing in all of these people who had been absorbed into the empire, absorbing their culture, bringing the dominant Ottoman culture to them. So these kinds of events were incredibly important social and cultural meeting grounds for many people. So it's really exciting that that's one of the things that we're recreating, is just this opportunity for people to come together and, share and have a good time and just be present and kind of create the culture. They were at that time creating a culture, and now we're going to recreate that cultural creation event that they were doing.
Very fun. So this isn't just a part. This is also in many ways in the Ottoman Empire the room where it happens,
Hmm.
and people can play with that sort of idea.
Yes, very much so. Very
So,
much so.
great. Thank you very much.